I never thought my own daughter would speak to me the way she did that morning. Her voice didn't shake. Mine did. She stood there on her porch, blocking the doorway, and said, "Dad, you can't come in. This isn't your place anymore. I need space. Please don't show up here again." It was the kind of sentence that doesn't land all at once. It hits in pieces. First the shock, then the sting, then the part where you start questioning what you did wrong. I remember staring past her, looking at the windows I once helped pay for, trying to understand how I became a stranger at a house I helped her secure. I swallowed and tried to ask why. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's better this way," she said. "We're trying to keep things simple. You make things complicated. I make things complicated." Hearing that from your own child is different from hearing it from anyone else. It doesn't bruise you. It hollows you out. Her voice was cold in a way I had never heard. Not angry, not stressed. Just done. As if my presence alone was some kind of burden. I stepped back, trying not to show how unsteady I felt. "If I did something..." She cut me off with a shake of her head. "Dad, please, just go home." Home. As if this place had never included me. As if the weekends I worked overtime, the papers I signed at the bank, the nights I told her she could always count on me. None of that existed anymore. I turned away before the door shut. I didn't want her to see my hands tremble. I walked down her driveway slower than I needed to, hoping she would call after me. She didn't. The silence stayed thick behind me, like a wall. When I reached my truck, something caught my eye. A white envelope had slipped from the mailbox and was lying near my tire. I bent down to pick it up. My name was on it. Not hers, mine. It was from the bank. At first I thought it was some kind of mistake. But then I remembered. This wasn't the first one. Letters had been showing up at my place for months. Mortgage updates, payment notices, refinancing offers. I kept assuming she'd forgotten to update her address. But now, watching her shut me out of the home I helped her get, the letters felt different, like a warning I hadn't recognized in time. I held that envelope for a long moment before setting it on the passenger seat. My daughter didn't want me inside her home. Yet the bank still treated me like I belonged to it. Both realities couldn't be true at the same time, unless something deeper was hiding underneath. And standing in that driveway, with her cold words still echoing, I finally felt it. The first real crack in the truth. If you've ever been pushed away by someone you supported, you know exactly how that moment feels. When my daughter first talked about buying a home, she sounded excited in a way I hadn't heard since she was a teenager. She sent me pictures of kitchens, paint colors, and garden layouts. Back then, she still called me Dad with warmth in her voice. Back then, she still asked for my advice. I remember sitting at my dining table, running numbers on a notepad, trying to figure out how to help her. I had some equity left in my modest home, and a small amount of savings I'd built over years of careful living. It wasn't much, but it was what I had. I told her I could help with the down payment, at least enough to get her approved. She hugged me then, a real hug, one that felt grateful. But everything changed when her partner stepped into the picture. He wasn't rude at first, just confident, too confident. He talked like every decision was already made. "We've got plans," he told me one evening, his hand on her shoulder like he owned her future. I felt myself fade out of the conversation, replaced by someone she barely knew but trusted more than her own father. When the time came to sign the loan documents, they were already spread across her kitchen counter. He handled the pen, The folders, the explanations. Whenever I had a question, he cut me off with simple phrases like, "It's standard, don't worry," or "Everyone signs this." I should have insisted on more time. I should have taken the papers home to read. But I didn't want to embarrass her in front of him. I didn't want to look like an old man who couldn't keep up. So I signed. I didn't realize until later that I hadn't signed as a simple supporter. I had signed as someone tied to the loan. Not full ownership, not equal power, just enough responsibility to be useful. The early signs of disrespect came slowly. Little moments. Times she ignored my calls for days. Times he answered instead and said, "We're busy," even though I could hear the TV in the background. Times she canceled our weekly dinners with short messages that didn't sound like her. I told myself she was just adjusting to a new life. Young people drift sometimes, but each drift felt a little sharper, as if someone was drawing a line between her world and mine. My own health didn't help. I'd grown slower in the last couple of years. My right knee stiffened in cold weather. Some days my energy disappeared faster than it used to. She noticed. He noticed too. And instead of drawing closer in concern, they pulled further away, as if my age made me inconvenient. Looking back now, I can see the pattern forming long before the door closed in my face. The distance didn't happen in a single moment. It was built piece by piece, the same way I helped build that house. When did you first notice someone pulling away? The first letter came a few months after they moved into the house. It was addressed to me, not to them, and at the time I brushed it off as a clerical mistake. I opened it, expecting some routine notice, but it mentioned a mortgage update. Something I thought they would be receiving, not me. I set it aside and told myself she probably forgot to switch the address. Young people overlook things. I didn't think much of it then. But the letters kept coming. Every few weeks, another envelope. Same bank, same bold print with my name. Sometimes they mentioned adjustments in the loan. Sometimes they referenced missed deadlines. Other times they talked about refinancing options. Each one tightened a knot inside me, like a warning I didn't yet understand. One afternoon, I called my daughter to ask about it. I kept my voice calm. "These letters keep coming. They're about the house. Shouldn't they be going to you?" There was a long pause before she answered. "Dad, I'm handling it. Don't worry. They're nothing important." Her tone didn't match her words. It was quick, clipped, almost irritated, as if my simple question had crossed a line. "But why are they addressed to me?" I asked. I said, "I'll take care of it," she replied, and hung up before I could say more. That was the first time I felt something colder than distance. Avoidance. It wasn't like her to hide anything from me. She used to come to me for every decision, even small ones. Now she couldn't answer one honest question. A few days later, her partner called. Not her, him. His voice was sharp from the start. "Stop going through our mail," he said. "It's sent to my address," I told him. "Well, then toss it. We don't need you digging around trying to cause problems." Cause problems. Those words stuck with me. Why would asking about a mortgage be something that caused problems? More letters arrived. I opened one that mentioned a past due amount. Another referenced account activity that looked unfamiliar. I didn't understand all the terms, but I understood enough to know these weren't small issues. Someone wasn't paying something on time. Someone was moving money around. Someone was making decisions that affected my name. My name, the one written in black ink at the bottom of those papers I signed when I thought I was helping her. Standing in my kitchen with a stack of envelopes, it hit me. I was still legally tied to that house. I wasn't a visitor pushed away at the door. I was part of the structure itself, locked in on paper, even if she wanted nothing to do with me in person. She said it was her home, but the bank didn't see it that way. The bank still treated me like I belonged in the foundation. Have you ever found yourself pulled into financial confusion because of family? I went to her house that afternoon with no intention of arguing. I just wanted to see her face, hear her voice, and ask, calmly, why things had changed so quickly. Part of me hoped the letters, the distance, the clipped tones on the phone. Maybe they were misunderstandings. Maybe there was still room for a simple conversation. When I reached the porch, I knocked gently. Not loud, not demanding. Just a father knocking on the door of the home he once helped secure. For a moment, there was nothing. Then I heard movement, shuffling, whispers, the unmistakable thump of footsteps hurriedly crossing the floor. I waited, thinking someone was on their way to open the door. But no one did. I knocked again. "It's me," I said softly. "I just want to talk." Her voice came from behind the door, quiet but firm. "Dad, not today. You should leave." Her words shouldn't have hurt as deeply as they did. But hearing them through a closed door made it feel like I wasn't a person anymore. Just a problem she wanted to ignore. I took a breath and tried one more time. "I'm worried about you. I'm worried about the house. I just want to understand." Before she could answer, he stepped in. Her partner's voice sliced through the wood like a blade. "I told you to stop coming here. You're not welcome. You think knocking will change anything? Go home, old man." Old man. He didn't yell it. He didn't need to. The tone said everything. Dismissive, mocking, cruel in that quiet, practiced way some people use when they know their target can't fight back. I pressed my hand against the side of the house to steady myself. I could still hear movement inside, the kind that told me they were right there, listening, watching, refusing to face me. "I'm not here to cause trouble," I said, my voice shaking despite my effort to hold it steady. "Then leave," he answered, "or I'll make sure you stop showing up." A threat. Soft, almost bored, but clear enough. I turned slowly, trying to keep what was left of my dignity intact. As I stepped off the porch, a neighbor across the street paused mid-rake and stared. He looked away quickly, but not before I felt the sting of humiliation crawl up my neck. Nothing cuts deeper than being pitied in public. I walked to the curb and sat on the cold edge of the sidewalk. My knees ached. My chest felt tight. The house loomed behind me, filled with voices that used to welcome me, but now wanted me erased. Sitting there, listening to the muffled sounds behind the door, I understood something I had been avoiding. This wasn't distance. This wasn't tension. This was deliberate, planned, controlled. Something was deeply wrong. And for the first time, I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. Would you walk away or fight for answers? The morning after they shut the door on me, I drove to the bank with a stack of letters I had been avoiding for months. I didn't want to make assumptions. I didn't want to believe my own child could be hiding something this serious. But the envelopes felt heavier now, as if the truth was stuffed between every line of printed text. When I reached the counter, I asked to speak with someone who handled mortgages. A young woman named Michelle led me to a small room with glass walls. Her voice was gentle, the kind people use when they sense something is off. "What can I help you with today?" she asked. I placed the letters on the table. "These keep coming to me. They're about my daughter's house. But I don't live there, and she keeps saying everything is under control." She looked through each envelope carefully, frowning deeper with every page she turned. Then she opened the computer system and typed in a few details. "Sir, you're listed as a co-signer on this loan." My stomach tightened. I knew I had signed something, but I thought it was just a simple support document, something to help her qualify. I never imagined my name was tied directly to her debt. Michelle clicked through more screens. There are also several adjustments made in the past 6 months. A refinancing attempt that didn't go through, and... She hesitated, scrolling slowly. "A home equity line of credit, opened recently." I stared at her. A line of credit? Why would they need that already? "I can't speak to their personal reasons," she said softly. "But you should know. Your signature appears on the authorization." My breath caught. I knew I hadn't signed anything like that. She slid the scanned document across the screen so I could see. The signature next to hers, shaky, uneven, nothing like my handwriting, sat there like a wound. "That's not mine," I whispered. Michelle folded her hands. "Sir, I'm required to tell you that this may fall under financial misuse. It's especially serious when an elder is involved. If someone signed for you, or pressured you into signing without clear information, you could be at risk here." Risk. The word hit me harder than the rest. Not only had they tied me to their debt, they had used me as a shield, a safety net, a name to lean on when their own credit wasn't enough. I felt heat rising in my chest, not just fear, but anger. Not wild anger. Cold, steady anger that comes when the truth lines up too perfectly to ignore. "What do I do now?" I asked. Michelle looked at me with real concern. "You need to speak with a lawyer. Soon. This situation has signs of possible fraud." I gathered the papers slowly, my hands shaking, not from confusion anymore, but from clarity. The distance, the closed doors, the threats, the lies. It all made sense now. They weren't pushing me away to protect themselves from conflict. They were pushing me away to protect the scheme. Think carefully about your own financial boundaries. Sometimes the people closest to you can put you at the greatest risk. I walked into the lawyer's office with a folder full of letters, bank printouts, and the scanned signature that wasn't mine. I felt like I was carrying pieces of my own life that had been taken apart without my permission. The lawyer, a middle-aged man named Carter, listened quietly as I explained everything. How I had helped my daughter, how the distance grew, how the door closed in my face, and how the bank revealed what they had done. When I finished, he didn't look surprised. He looked troubled. "Sir," he said, tapping the forged signature with his pen, "this is not a simple misunderstanding. This is a pattern, and when it involves an older parent, the law treats it very seriously." I felt my throat tighten. Hearing the word pattern made everything real in a way I hadn't wanted to face. He leaned forward. "What they've done, tying you to debt, opening credit in your name, possibly forging documents, these are indicators of elder financial abuse." That word, abuse, landed like a punch. I had known something was wrong, but hearing it in a legal setting made it feel heavier, colder, undeniable. "We need to contact the authorities," he continued. "There's a unit that handles elder exploitation. They'll take your statement." Part of me wanted to stand up and walk out, not because I doubted him, but because I still couldn't believe I was about to report my own child. Yet another part of me, the part that had been pushed aside, insulted, ignored, knew there was no turning back. Carter called the police station while I sat there in silence, staring at the documents. When the officer on the phone asked him to bring me in, my hands started shaking. Not from fear of the law, but from the reality of what I was about to do. At the station, a young officer guided me to a quiet room. He spoke slowly, respectfully, making sure I understood each step. "We just need the truth, sir," he said, "and we need it in your own words." I told them everything, every letter, every threat, every cold moment at the door. I handed over the forged document, the refinancing notice, the past due statements. As I talked, the officer nodded, taking careful notes. When I finished, he said, "You were kept on the mortgage intentionally. They benefited financially while leaving you legally exposed. That's not an accident." Hearing that removed the last bit of doubt I had been holding on to. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't confusion. This was deliberate. The officer explained the possibilities: fraud, coercion, unauthorized use of my identity. Each word felt heavier than the last. Then came the part that broke me. "We will investigate your daughter and her partner," he said gently. I looked down at my hands. They felt older than they ever had. Knowing my own child was now part of a legal investigation wasn't something I ever imagined. "Do you believe adult children should face charges when they exploit their parents?" The courtroom felt colder than I expected. Not in temperature, but in the way silence settled over everything. I sat at the front with my lawyer, the documents laid out in a neat stack, each page a reminder of how far things had fallen. My daughter and her partner sat across the room. She didn't look at me. He leaned back in his chair like he was bored. When the judge entered, everyone stood. His expression was firm, serious, the kind of face that told you he had seen enough pain in his career to recognize it before a single word was spoken. My lawyer began by presenting the forged signature. The scanned copy appeared on the courtroom monitor, enlarged for everyone to see. Even from a distance, the shaky stroke and uneven letters stood out like a confession. "This is not his handwriting," my lawyer said. "This signature appears on a document authorizing a substantial line of credit against the property, a line of credit the defendant and her partner used." The judge leaned forward. "And the father did not consent to this?" "No, Your Honor," Carter replied. "He didn't even know it existed." My daughter's partner shifted in his seat. My daughter finally glanced up, not at me, but at the screen, her eyes flickering with something between annoyance and fear. The bank records came next. Missed payments, withdrawals she never mentioned, attempts to refinance without notifying me. One document after another landed like stones. The judge listened without interrupting, his face tense. When the prosecution asked my daughter to speak, she stood with her arms crossed. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said. "Dad is overreacting. He knew he was helping. He just forgets things sometimes." The words hit me harder than the forged signature ever did. She reduced everything, my memory, my dignity, to an excuse she could use. Her partner tried shifting the blame as well. The bank told us it was fine. They said we could sign for him. The judge cut him off sharply. "Banks do not tell people to forge signatures. Do not insult this court." The room fell silent. After reviewing everything, the judge spoke slowly, each word carrying weight. "This case demonstrates clear financial exploitation of an elder. The father was misled, tied to debt without informed consent, and placed at financial risk. This is not a misunderstanding. This is abuse." He ordered restitution and removed my name from all liability associated with the loan. Then he announced that charges would be filed against both of them: fraud, identity misuse, and elder exploitation. I should have felt triumphant. And part of me did. Some small part that had been drowning for months finally came up for air. But the rest of me felt something heavier. Sorrow. A deep, quiet grief that no court could fix. I walked out of that courtroom free of their debt, but also free of the daughter I once knew. What do you think about the sentence they received? When the court released me from every financial tie, I walked out feeling lighter than I had in years. It wasn't joy. It wasn't a relief in the way people expect. It was something quieter, like stepping out of a storm and realizing the world is still standing, even if part of you isn't. The bank updated the records. My name disappeared from every document that had held me hostage for so long. No more letters. No more hidden risks. No more waiting for another blow I didn't see coming. For the first time in months, I felt like I owned my life again. But the cost of that freedom was a daughter I could no longer recognize. I spent nights replaying everything I had done for her. The late shifts I worked so she could join school trips, the rent I paid when she first moved out, the down payment I handed over without question. Every moment I thought was love. She saw as a resource, a number, a signature. Losing her wasn't a sudden event. It was a slow unraveling, one pulled thread at a time until the entire bond collapsed. I used to think love could hold anything together. Now I understand that love means nothing when the other person chooses greed. And so I made the hardest choice a parent can make. I stopped trying to fix what she broke. No calls, no letters, no waiting for apologies that would never come. The home I helped build stayed closed to me. But I realized something important. Peace doesn't come from standing at a locked door. Peace comes from turning away from it. I started rebuilding my life in small steps. Morning walks, even on days my knee complained. Coffee at the same diner where the waitress learned my name. Weekend meetings at a local community center where people my age shared stories of caregiving, heartbreak, and survival. I found comfort in ordinary faces. People who treated me with more respect than my own blood had shown. I filled my days with quiet routines, light chores, reading, helping a neighbor with his garden. None of it erased what happened, but it grounded me. It reminded me that dignity isn't something someone gives you, it's something you protect. And slowly, I learned to stop asking why she chose this path. Some questions don't need answers. Some endings don't need closure. All they need is acceptance. My daughter still lives in that house, the one I never entered, the one she guarded so fiercely from the very person who helped her build it. But the weight of that place no longer sits on my shoulders. Whatever happens there now, it has nothing to do with me. In the end, I found peace not through forgiveness, but through boundaries. Through choosing myself instead of chasing someone who had already let go. What do you believe elders deserve at the end of their lives?